Oh my kako. So wonderful to see so many old friends here. I mean, longtime friends. So good to see everybody still actively engaged in agriculture and all of its various aspects. You know, I was sitting in back with Leslie Hill, and we were just kind of reminiscing about the fact that back in the early 80s, we actually belonged to a group called the Young Farmers of Hawaii. And the reality kind of hit us both. She's younger than me though, but the reality hit us both that, I don't know, if we're going to revitalize that chapter, I think we got to go back to, you know, maybe young Anne Makule or something. But it's a pleasure to be here today with all of you. You know, I think for the legislature, you know, our main role primarily, of course, is to set policy. And I think the guiding lights for us really are the state constitution and, of course, the revised statutes. But, you know, the Constitution is very clear in my mind, particularly after the 1978 Constitutional Convention. The emphasis is on becoming more self-sufficient in agriculture. The issue was also to identify those agricultural lands that are vital to the future of the industry here in Hawaii. And you know, it took a while, but the legislature, I think, finally took some action steps to make this a reality. It's going to be a process, but nevertheless, I think it's very, very important that we start that process and that we have clear goals in mind as we're moving forward. So I'm pleased with that. I think the issue, though, is going to be how timely we all respond to this issue about identifying these important agricultural lands. And you know, when the concept was first born, I think, back in '78, the primary issue really focused at that time, because this is the way we are, you know, as human beings, really focused on the existing commodities that were dominating Hawaii at that time, sugar and pine. And I think much of the emphasis when you talk about identifying important agricultural lands had to do with those two commodities. But today, as you all know, it's a very different scene. And I think agriculture, or energy development will play an even more major role in that regard. Sugar, you know, of course, there was bagasse, the byproduct of sugar, and that was used by many of the plantations. So this concept, I think, in Hawaii is not a foreign one. It's just something that we need to refocus on and become more refined, given the advances in technology that have taken place over time. The emphasis on clean energy, particularly by the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative, I think also creates some overzealousness, let's put it that way. And I think, you know, this is not necessarily a bad thing, but we need to be very careful in our approach to ensure that agriculture, meaning food production agriculture, is not lost in the discussion about alternative energy agriculture. There was an issue that occurred a couple of years ago where you know, there was a desire to do biofuel production on the Big Island, and the process didn't involve necessarily contacting those existing lessees that held some of those lands. Those were state lands. And what it produced was some animosity, some contention between the energy producers as well as the existing agricultural users. So, you know, the legislature felt that we wanted to at least bring this to the forefront, make this an issue that was not ignored, that was not just swept under the rug, because otherwise this contention and this confrontation, this adversarial type relationship would just continue. So, you know, given the leadership of the Senator Clayton Heath in the Senate, we were able to put together a bill that very simply asks that any time any bioenergy development is being proposed on state land, that a public hearing be held on the island on which that was being proposed. So a very simple measure, but in my mind very profound in that the message was include the community, include all of those who are potentially going to be impacted by this proposal. And that bill did pass. We ran into a little bit of turbulence with the administration. However, we did override the veto of that measure, and so now that is in law. But I think that the ramifications of that, the implications of that going forward are very, very key. You know, for me, whether we're talking about energy crops or food production crops, the issue really is water. The plantation irrigation systems, many have been assumed by the state, but many still need much improvement and restoration. And unless we're really able to provide a consistent source of water, in a manner that will meet the needs of our agricultural users throughout the state, we are just really doing a lot of empty discussion, I think, at this point. I know that the legislature in the past has made irrigation, agricultural water, a very important priority. Sometimes we're successful at putting those projects forward, sometimes we're not. But in my opinion, unless we really focus on that moving forward, then we will have a very difficult time with any kind of agricultural production. So water is the key. Let's all try to use that, in my opinion, as a common bond, as a common denominator, to work together to ensure that there is a viable future for agriculture and all of its manifestations. I think we have great opportunity at this point in time, speaking from a legislative government perspective. We will have a new administration in a few weeks. I think the opportunity to engage that administration in discussion about agriculture is going to be key. I have heard comments from both candidates, from the two dominating parties, that agriculture is something that they want to emphasize. But I think we need to hear more specifics. I think we need to have an ongoing conversation about this issue because it's not something that will go away. I want to be sure that this priority is not lost on the administration, and I will pledge to you that the legislature will do its part to maintain that focus going forward. The other issue, and I'll close with this, the other issue that I think is very key, you know, we heard from Richard, and there are a number of others. Leslie was also telling me that she is off the grid. So I think there are many agricultural producers who are looking to become energy independent on their own. And at the same time, they will probably be able to produce electricity that can flow to other users in the system. So one of the key ingredients that we have to ensure is in place is that the public utilities provide the ease for that electrical generation to be shared with the rest of the grid. And so I think these two issues for me, water and this, and working with our utility companies, are going to be very vital for the future of agriculture.